Hey, welcome back to another exciting video on grammar. The last time we talked about a couple things. We're talking about adjectives, remember? But last time we talked about true adjectives and what true adjectives are, and they have to come right before the noun. They have different forms. Last time we went into more depth about what a comparative, how to make comparative adjectives, and how to make superlative adjectives. Okay. All right, and we learned a couple rules. The first thing that we learned was that there's two different ways to make these based on historical reasons, and I tried to make it simple for you. All one syllable words, and we're just going to write comparative so we can erase this because we need to move on to something else. Comparative you form by er, or by the word more. And superlative we form by adding est to an adjective or by using the word most. Okay. So when to use each one, and this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. Okay, we're just going to do a quick review here. Remember, if it's a 3-syllable word, you always use the word most. Okay, so we're going to take fulfilling. That was the most fulfilling assignment I've ever done. Okay, fulfilling. You would say it's 3 syllables, so you'd always use the word most, or you could say that assignment was more fulfilling than my last one. Okay, so you're comparing two things. So if it's 3 syllables, you're always going to use more for the comparative and most for the superlative. All right, so that's very easy. If it's 3 syllables, you're going to use more or most. All right. Now, if it's 1 syllable, for example, sad, 1-syllable words always use er or est. So if you were talking about something, that movie was sadder than the last one, or that was the saddest movie I've ever seen. Okay, that's the way you would write. You wouldn't say that movie was the most sad. You would say the saddest. Okay, or that movie was more sad than the other one. You would say that movie was sadder than the other one. Okay, so if it's 1 syllable, use er or est. Very easy. Now the 2-syllable words are a little more tricky, and if you remember right, the 2-syllable words, we need to look for a couple things. If they end in y, or if the 2-syllable words end in le or y, you're going to use the er or est. Okay. For example, shady, you would change that shadier. Remember, it's why you change the spelling. Or the shadiest. That was the shadiest character I've ever met. Okay, shadiest or shadier. If the word ends in a verb form, so for example, ing or ed, if it ends in a verb form, then you're going to use more or most. Okay, and we've already done that with the fulfilling. So if it ends in this, you're going to do the more or the most. Okay, so that's a quick review of what we covered last video. This video is actually very simple, or pretty short. Now we're going to talk about how to sequence adjectives. There's a specific way you have to sequence them or say them in order. We already know that true adjectives, like the word slow, has to come right before the noun, correct? So true adjectives have to come right before the noun. True adjectives need to come right before. So slow car. Okay, the slow car is gray. Okay, is green. You could say the slow car is green. So that's how you sequence true adjectives from articles. Okay. However, what happens if you use more than one true adjective, which we often do? Okay, if, for example, they give the example, the huge old white house. All right, huge is a true adjective, old is a true adjective, and white is a true adjective. But how do you know what order they come in? And there's a very simple rule, and this is probably one of the most difficult topics for if English is not your first language, which for many of us it's not. This is a very difficult to master, okay? Because we often mix up our words in ways that don't sound correct to native speakers of English. So there's a specific order that these have to be said in. The huge old white house. And I'm just going to take you through here. And these are examples of how it's not correct. And if it doesn't sound, if you can't hear why it's incorrect, that's okay. We just need to memorize the rule, okay? You can't say the huge white old house. You can't say the white huge old house, white old huge house, old huge white house, old white huge house. None of those are correct, okay? The only one that is correct is the huge old white house, okay? Or actually, one of those might be a duplicate. No, they're not. Okay, so why? Why is one correct and the other ones are not? The huge old white house. Well, let's take a look. Basically, if you have more than one true adjective, we're going to summarize these into categories: size, age, and color. That's how you have to say the adjectives: size, age, and color. All right? So, for example, the size is huge. Huge. The age is old. And the color is white. So anytime that we use more than one true adjective to describe something, we always have to put it in this order: size, age, and color. All right? No other order can it come in for proper English. So we have to say size, age, and color. Size, age, and color. And I suppose you can remember it if you have to by SAC. Okay? SAC. Size, age, color. All right? So that's the order that adjectives must come in: size, age, and color. And we're going to give basically this adjective, this exercise, you're going to rearrange the adjectives in the following phrases to put them in the correct sequence based on their meaning. So shiny, brand new, huge, refrigerator. Well, size first, so we would say huge. Then the age, brand new. The huge, brand new. And then color, shiny. The huge, brand new, shiny. Oops, not shy. You can't have a shy refrigerator. Shiny refrigerator. Okay, so what I had to do is I had to decide which adjective was describe the size, which one describes the age of the object, which one describes the color, and that's the order that they have to come in. All right, so this isn't too difficult. It's a little more difficult when we, like I said, if English is not your first language, you're really going to have to think about this every time you describe something to make sure we get it in the correct order. SAC, right? Size, age, color. All right. So you're going to basically take these words, 1 through 10, and you're going to rearrange them. And of course, your noun always comes at the end. Okay. You're going to rearrange these 3 adjectives before the noun in the proper sequence. All right. The size, the age, and the color of the thing. So let's do this first one. Overcoat. Well, brown. I can't read that because it's too small. Sorry, let's use another one I can read. Antique gold miniature locket. A locket is a piece of jewelry. So first we have to do size. So I would say miniature. So the miniature. Age, antique. Ooh, very old. And then color, gold. All right, so that's how I'd rearrange that. The miniature antique gold locket. All right, so remember, size, age, and color. So you're going to go ahead and rearrange those adjectives. This concludes our unit on true adjectives, and all these were true adjectives. Oops, let's go ahead and true adjectives. And now we're going to break down adjectives. In the next section, we're going to look at articles. Articles are a special type of adjective, and they include the words the, an, a, some, this, that, any determiner or any thing that specifies which noun we're talking about. Okay, those are articles, and they're adjectives, but they're special adjectives. And articles for second language learners, or for people who are not native speakers of English, articles are probably the most difficult thing to master, okay, to use correctly. So we're going to take a look at those, and it's a long unit, but I think at the end of it you'll understand how to use articles correctly, and you'll be more comfortable with them. Well, hopefully you enjoyed our little unit on true adjectives, and I will see you in the next video.